has to do with current politics, philosophy, ideas, as well as economics and what's going on in our country and the world. As you know, the word politics is pretty it's quite maligned actually, and it has a dirty connotation. And yet it comes from the ancient Greek language polis, which meant community. To have a political involvement means to be involved with the affairs and the decisions of, by, and for the community. Decisions that affect every one of our lives in every single way. For example, the air that we breathe, the cleanness of the water that we drink, the food that we have to digest and to make sure it's healthy, the roads that we drive on, the transportation that we're either lacking or should improve on, our schools and our colleges and access to education, not to mention global warming and the survival of the planet itself and the earth and the atmosphere, the oceans rising with warm temperatures. Every one of these issues that affects us either immediately or will affect us in the next few years are crucial issues that are in the realm of politics. So being involved with the decisions of, by, and for the polis, the word for Greek word for community. I'd like to read from a book that I've written recently, just a quick tribute actually to Senator Paul Wellstone, a good friend of mine, and who was a U.S. Senator from Minnesota and a professor of political science himself, before he died in a plane crash very, very tragically just before his third election in 2002. Senator Wellstone redefined the word politics and the term politics. He said, politics is not about power. Politics is not about money. Politics is not about winning for the sake of winning. Politics is about the improvement of people's lives. Think about that. Politics is about the improvement of people's lives. That's not where we are today in terms of understanding this word and what it stands for, represents. If anything, American politics has been taken over by big money through corporate donations of individual wealthy people who own corporations. In fact, in the presidential election of 2012, over $6.2 billion was raised and spent in the elections for president at the federal level and Congress at the federal level. $6.2 billion. This year it might even be more. And where does that money come from? We have some numbers on that as far as political scientists know, that the top 0.5% of the population, the wealthiest 0.5% provide over 80% of the money in presidential elections. In fact, the 100% of the money, or almost 100%, is provided by the top 12% of the population. This is staggering because those who actually pay for these campaigns are going to get benefits and going to have lobbyists' money to try to attract them and benefit them, and also influence the politicians to decide on which issues to have, which issues to pursue. Brett, turn it off, please. Excuse me, I just had to make a quick recommendation to my friend over here who's helping me out. We have to really think about the importance of this whole political process and how it's being run in this country, because as of now, the big donors have influenced most of our leaders, not all of them. There's some still very good leaders who are still pure of heart and purpose and in terms of getting their job done. We're looking at people who don't take corporate money. There are a handful in Congress. But most of our people in office have been taking big money from corporations and have been voting for tax cuts for the super wealthy, for tax loopholes for big corporations. They've been voting to cut education or not keep up with the spending that education needs from kindergarten to university. That's one reason our college students are in tremendous debt. They are in fact in debt of approximately $30,000 each. 40 million American college students with bachelor's degrees are actually in debt on the average of $30,000 each, for a total of $1.3 trillion debt. It's the second largest debt after our federal debt. And that is staggering, because how do we even justify allowing our next generation to go into this kind of debt and starting off with this heavy burden around their neck? It is totally incomprehensible, it is outrageous, and leaders in our country should be stopping this immediately and providing tuition-free education from kindergarten and preschool all the way through university and medical school. And they should also work on alleviating the debt burden for our students. And only a couple of candidates are proposing that, getting rid of student debt entirely. And yet we only hear from two major candidates when there are four candidates running for the presidency. You have Jill Stein of the Green Party. You have Gary Johnson of the Libertarian Party. You have Hillary Clinton of the Democratic Party. And you have Donald Trump of the Republican Party. And yet the corporate media, which is sponsored mainly by big business and those advertisers on there, give airtime only to the two, in quote, leading candidates who are from the mainstream parties. Now, we understand that John Stuart Mill, the great philosopher, said that freedom of expression is of indispensable value to a democracy. And we need a marketplace of ideas where people could actually choose from the best of ideas and put them into practice. Choose from the best candidates with the best ideas. How can we have a choice, or how can we build up candidates who are third parties or fourth parties, the so-called minor parties? How can they get to build up their party or their ideas without any exposure on the mass media? It's very difficult, almost impossible. That's why there are many reforms we have to bring in order to give people in America a choice. Let's talk a bit about education. In 1960 in California, all the way till 1980, college tuition was free, all the way through university. From kindergarten through university, and law school and medical school was free of tuition for California residents. That was under the Master Plan for Higher Education brought in by Governor Pat Brown, the father of the current Governor Jerry Brown. It was voted for by Republicans and Democrats to provide a guarantee that every young person in America would be able to go to school, go to college, professional training, technical or trade school, and have their talents fully developed, their God-given, nature-given talents fully developed, so they can flower and pursue the happiness, as Thomas Jefferson said. The pursuit of happiness requires a guarantee of us to give our young people the chance to be fully educated. And we're not doing that anymore. The Master Plan for Higher Education was dismantled slowly but surely, beginning in the 1980s, with this right-wing propaganda that the students should have a skin in the game, so as they say, and pay for their education, at least partially. This was propaganda because what happened was gradually tuitions kept getting increased a little by little, going from zero tuition at the community college. When I first started teaching in 1979, my community college students at Foothill College paid zero tuition. They paid a $6 fee, period, to be able to get into the classroom and take the classes, 15 units, $6 service fee for 15 units, not per unit. There was no tuition per unit. And so they were able to graduate in 2 years and transfer to universities. UC Berkeley was $37 a semester just a few years before that, for all the way through law school. In fact, Governor Pete Wilson went to UC Berkeley Law School and paid $37 a semester for 3 years of law school. He became a lawyer, a businessman, a mayor, a senator, and then a governor. Governor Schwarzenegger, who went to Santa Monica College back in the 70s, he paid $6 service fee for all 15 units, transferred in 2 years to the University of Wisconsin, and got a bachelor's degree in business, went on to become a bodybuilder. I guess he was a bodybuilder first, but he went ahead and did some building of his mind for a while, got his bachelor's degree, went on to become a businessman, a movie star, and a governor. Now, if that is not the American dream for two of the most prominent people, what else is? And why did our politicians take away this American dream while allowing it to exist for themselves more than 20 years ago? From our young people today, I teach at Cypress College, and many of my students are struggling to make it. Some of them end up dropping out after one semester because they have to go to work full time. Others are actually working between 30 and 40 hours a week while taking a full load of classes, and I'm sure it's quite difficult to focus on your studies and your readings. They do their best. This is just not the kind of hurdle we should be putting in front of our young people if we want a great country and a great world. How is it that other countries in the world, Germany, France, Denmark, Sweden, Norway, many of the European countries provide tuition-free education for their own students, and for, even in the case of Germany and Slovenia, they allow foreign students to come in. And if they speak English and they take the courses in English and pass the exams, they can literally have tuition-free education as well in those two countries. So we can do that in America once again. The state of Tennessee became the first state to provide 2 years of community colleges tuition-free as long as the students keep up a certain GPA. And that's fine. You need to set a standard. So ladies and gentlemen, we're talking here about the justice and fairness of our political system and what's in it, and the fairness of opportunity, creating equal opportunity for all of our people, not just for a few. And as the Occupy movement said so eloquently, that the 1% have come to capture the system, leaving the 99% of us behind. And it's just not right. It's not even American. It's not fair. It's not what the Declaration of Independence talks about, or the Constitution, or the preamble, which talks about we the people establishing this government in order to form a more perfect union, to promote the blessings of liberty to ourselves and our posterity. It's that, in other words, you're looking at passing these blessings on, the opportunity in life on, to generations on end. I love Chief Seattle, the Native American tribal chief up in the Washington State area today. Chief Seattle once said that every decision we make, political or economic, any kind of decision we make, public decision, must look at the implications for the next 7 generations. The next 7 generations. We need to be doing that today, ladies and gentlemen. This show will be about that very idea of bringing back justice and fairness in the economic realm, in the environmental realm, in the work realm, in the arts realm. We have been cutting our arts programs for our young people, and it's not right to take away the arts programs and the science and the labs, computer labs that were available in some of the high-income schools in the United States and in California are just not available in the lower-income schools. Public schools I'm talking about here. That equality of opportunity must include guaranteed high-quality public education all the way through K through 12 to start with, and then on to university. This has to do with the American dream. And as the title of my book says, Dollar Democracy with Liberty and Justice for Some, How to Reclaim the American Dream for All. That's the key. And I show in that book that every single aspect of our lives, from healthcare to jobs to education to climate change and global warming, to the environment, to safety of our water supply and our food supply, the Wall Street crash, all of this was affected negatively by dollar democracy, by which I mean the kind of system we have today in America. It's privately financed elections primarily, privately financed by wealthy lobbyists, wealthy corporations and their executives and their families, to the detriment of the American people who need a public interest, a public good government, one that provides the general welfare, that promotes the general welfare, as our Constitution says, is the real duty of the government. So we need to work hard. We love this country with all our hearts, almost all of us, many of you out in the audience do, probably all of you who are Americans, and there are people around the world that are watching this show, but we care about the world just as much. We don't just care about only America because we live in a world, and America is a great country with a great tradition. My parents were immigrants to America and did very well with the American dream. I want to make sure this next generation in America does very well, and in the world, that we act fairly, that we cut back on our tremendous amount of excess defense spending and involvement in unjust wars, and we bring back the funding to help our people grow here, and also have joint venture with other countries in the world to build an environmentally sustainable future with massive education programs and sustainability programs throughout the world. And that way we'll have soft power in foreign policy. I think it's about time now. Is it about 7:15, Brett? Where are we in time?
7:13.
7:13. We got about a minute or two to wrap this up and then bring in the audience. This is what this show is going to be about at least 4 nights a week, 7 o'clock to 7:30, Monday through Thursday at this point. We'd welcome you to come back tomorrow, but also right now at 7:15, we're going to have you call in at this phone number, area code 562-234-3319. 562-234-3319. And tell us your concerns about what's going on in this country's life, our country's life, as well as your own personal life, and see how they're connected. How are politics connected with economics? How is it connected to our personal chance to make a good living and live well, especially a productive life that would be enjoyable, the pursuit of happiness? How do we bring that American dream here and bring back the middle class dream throughout the world? Because many people in the world are suffering. The gap, rich gap and poor gap, has grown tremendously in the world. The United States has gone from 40 to 1, the average CEO's income compared to the average worker in 1980, before Reaganomics, was 40 to 1. Now today, it is almost 400 to 1, the gap between the average CEO's income and the average worker. In fact, you probably can't even see my hands on the screen because 400 to 1 is 10 times that of 40 to 1. In the world, the top 1% own or control 80% of the world's wealth. That's unbelievable. How can we allow this to happen in a world that talks about democracy and wants to bring back power to regular folks? I'll leave this with a quote that Mahatma Gandhi once said. He said, "If the people lead, the leaders will follow. If the people lead, the leaders will follow." And Frederick Douglass, our great American liberator, abolitionist, and congressional journalist, Frederick Douglass said, "Power concedes nothing without a demand." Power concedes nothing without a demand. So we, the people, have to demand of our leaders, of the people in power in the world, in this country, that we have to have power back to ourselves to help run our own country in the way that's best for all of us. So let's go ahead and take some phone calls. Brett, I'm going to turn on the phone here, and if people would like to call in, please do. The phone is on, actually, and you'll be able to hear yourself. I just advise that you turn down the volume on. Once you're on the line with me, you should turn on the volume on your computer so that it doesn't have reverb. Okay? So go ahead and start while I'm still talking. You can, as soon as the phone call comes in, we'll engage you with your conversation, what you'd like to say and talk about. So hopefully someone will call. We'll see how that goes. But meanwhile, this is going to be an ongoing program. As of now, we're going to try to have it 4 nights a week, Monday through Thursday, from 7 to 7:30. And from 7 to 7:15 will be the introduction, the issues that we'll talk about. I'll probably be having some guests on here at times that are prominent in social justice work. And maybe we'll get a few politicians here too who would like to do the right thing, and maybe those who are not doing the right thing and need to be woken up a little bit about what should be done. We'll have some guests here, and then we'll have the next 15 minutes from 7:15 to 7:30 involved with phone calls from the public. 562-234-3319. 562-234-3319. Of course, one of the biggest topics right now is the debate that was held last night in Washington University in St. Louis, and we saw how that was conducted. It was basically a debate that did not focus on substantive issues in depth with critical thinking. Instead, it degenerated into personal attacks. Started off that way, actually, with personal attacks and some incredibly egregious and all kinds of unbelievable information about videos and sex tapes and this and that. And, you know, what are we talking about here? We're supposed to be talking about public policy, and it's degenerating to ad hominem arguments. And of course, what Donald Trump has said on those tapes is unbelievable. It's actually unacceptable and outrageous. What he said about women, how he addressed them in those tapes, the videotape and also some of the audio tapes. And we have to condemn that. But on the other hand, we also need to talk about the issues that are going to affect us right now coming up, such as the economy and our jobs and the environment. There's a call coming in right now. Let's take that. See who this is. Hello, good evening. You're on with Peter Mathews. How are you? Who's speaking, please?
Hello, this is Andre. I go to Mathews College. I'm one of Professor Mathews' students, actually.
Oh, hello, Andre. How are you?
Hi, Professor. I'm just very curious. I want to be a lawyer, in a couple of years, and that's what I aspire to be. But I'm just worried about how am I going to make it happen? How am I going to be able to get through it without the student debt and stuff being taken care of? So I just want to discuss that. I want to hear your thoughts about this. I love hearing you talk about, trying to help the students.
Thank you, Anjay. Anjay's question was, and maybe all of you heard it clearly, we're setting up the system right now to make it workable, but he asked that he says he wants to become a lawyer, to get his education, the pre-law education, then go into law school and become a lawyer. And he wonders how he can do this without getting into tremendous student debt and not being able to afford to get out of the debt before he gets old. And that's happening to so many of our students. The $30,000 debt can last a long, long time in your life. So the way I propose it, I've done that in the past in my academic work and my public work, is to propose a tuition-free system of education all the way through university and medical school, as we had in California, and as those other countries that I mentioned have today. And we do it by closing the excessive, unnecessary corporate tax loopholes. And we may want to bring in more tax revenue from incomes over $1 million a year, raise the rates on incomes over $1 million a year, and certainly close the corporate loopholes of big companies that are right now not paying any taxes at all. They're paying zero income tax because of write-offs and loopholes that Congress passed for them, at the same time that they actually ended up giving Congress ended up giving them tax loopholes as they funded the members of Congress or the candidates for Congress running for office. It was a quid pro quo without being exactly a quid pro quo, because it's illegal for a Congress candidate to take money from a private source and agree in exchange to vote a certain way for certain bills that that private source wants to be passed. It's called quid pro quo, direct exchange, this for that. That's illegal. They would both go to prison, but it's not done that way. Our pay-to-play system is very interestingly done in a sophisticated way that says the big money is raised, and later on there's an understanding that the people elected are going to serve those moneyed interests who give them campaign contributions by passing legislation that would help them. That would help them get tax breaks, help them get government contracts. In the case of many of the defense contractors, are getting huge contracts, whether or not the weapons are workable, whether or not they're needed. And this is a problem. The details are there. But that's what I would say, Anjay. We need to bring the funds in and maybe even look at some of our defense budget, which right now is $610 billion a year. The United States defense budget, the base budget, that's not including the other kinds of parts of the budget like Homeland Security, the defense budget, but the base defense budget is $610 billion a year. equal to the next 7 countries in a row put together, actually more than the other next 7 countries put together, and at least 3 times out of the Chinese defense budget, and China is number 2 in defense spending. So we can look at the defense programs that are some of which are unnecessary, some of which don't work very well, like the F-35 Joint Strike Fighter, as my book talks about, details of how it's not working well. It's not even needed. We had a chance to use other airplanes that were working well, update them, especially aircraft. So that's something detailed we'll talk about later. But Anji, I would say this is where we could look to closing loopholes, taxing the super rich a little bit more, and also cutting back on the defense budget and those 1,000 military bases that we have around the world in 150 countries, for which the United States taxpayer is paying $250 billion a year to maintain those 1,000 military bases around the world. There's where the money can come. By the way, you know what it would cost to fund all the college students across the United States for 1 year, tuition free? $74 billion. $74 billion compared to $610 billion defense budget. So there you go. Any other questions? Or anyone else calling in would like to call and have a conversation? Tell us your ideas. Feel free. Come on. Loosen up. This is a two-way conversation. This is mass democracy. We're talking about bringing back and keeping the political revolution going. As Bernie Sanders had said, the political revolution must continue regardless of who is elected this November. It doesn't matter if Trump is elected or Clinton is elected. Of course we're trying, many of us are trying to get the best person elected, or Jill Stein if you vote for her, Gary Johnson. You've got 4 options. But whoever gets elected, the political revolution has to continue. This cannot just be about one election or one person. Otherwise, America will never change for the better, and we won't be able to save our democracy and our society. So anyone else like to call in? We've got about another 7 or 8 minutes, I believe.
We're at 7:22.
It's 7:22 right now. We've got 8 minutes left till our broadcast is over at 7:30. So don't be shy. 562-234-3319. 562-234-3319. So much to talk about. Healthcare issues, the Affordable Care Act and how it's having a lot of challenges and not working out so well. We've got co-payments and deductibles that are causing a lot of people to have financial stress. The Affordable Care Act. Healthcare has to be a single-payer system that will cover everyone equitably. Another phone call coming in here. Let's see who this is. Good evening. You're on with Peter Mathews. How's it going, sir? Who's speaking, please?
Fine, thank you. Hi, Professor Mathews. I do have a question or a concern.
Yes. What's your name, please?
Yes. My name is Pilar, and
Okay.
I'm a single mother of 2 here in California.
Mm-hmm.
My son has started community college, and I'm just really concerned about the student debt that he's going to be, I guess, coming across. And how can I help my son, with the tuition, or how can we help in California to change, to get, I guess, free education for the young people today?
Yes, we have to. Unfortunately, the only way to do that right now is to actually get the right people elected to state government, because the vast majority of our funding for K-3 university comes from the state government, not the federal or not the local government, the state. So we need to get the right state assembly people elected, the state senators, and the right governor elected, those who will not just promise us to bring in the funds for education by closing loopholes and maybe taxing the rich a little bit more, the super rich, but you have to look to see where their campaign contributions are coming from. This is a major problem. The candidates who run for office promise you the world many times, but they take money from these big lobbyists and wealthy people, and they end up serving them rather than serving the American middle class or the American working poor. So I would say to you, ma'am, meanwhile, while we're working on the political end of it, it's very difficult to save money. I've got a 4.5-year-old daughter, and we're thinking right now about how we're going to save for her college. We need to go with candidates who will actually guarantee and promise tuition-free education, but also give us a real plan as to how they'll bring it in. I've laid out my plan, and I think getting involved politically and getting your local state assembly person, your state senator, is first of all, to contact them and say, what can we do to unite a lot of the assembly and the Senate and the governor, get the right governor in there who will actually support this. And Jerry Brown is the governor whose father, Pat Brown, brought in, Pat Brown, Jerry Brown's father, brought in this tuition-free system that we had for 20 years, as you probably know or remember or have heard of. So that's what I would suggest.
Yes, that's amazing. Yes.
Isn't that something? We can do it. We've done it before. This is a can-do nation, and California is the can-do state. We are, in many ways, the #1 state. I love all the other states, and I lived in many of them. But California is the largest state with the largest economy, and the amazing technology and entertainment, all of that. And yet we have one of the largest gaps between rich and poor among all the states. California has one of the largest gaps between rich and poor and has a real problem with affordable education. So I would be there. I'd love for you to stay in touch with us. So let's set up a network across the state to start contacting our legislators. If you'd like to do that, let's start getting a network together. We'll stay in touch during the week as we're talking about these issues. And we want to bring some of you on to interview. Okay?
Professor Mathews, can I ask your thoughts on Bao Nguyen, who's running for office?
You know, I've never met Mr. Nguyen. I have heard about him, and he's running in the Orange County area, I believe, right? And
yes,
certainly,
he's in the Orange County area.
I would support any candidate who refuses corporate money. I don't know if he accepts corporate money, private funding from lobbyists and corporate sources and CEOs. If he doesn't, he'll be freer. And if his platform is progressive, I believe from what I've heard from secondary sources, it may be, but I don't know. I've never met him. I need to meet him and talk to him. Let's have him on the show if you'd like to come on and have his opponent on as well.
Wonderful.
Yes, we'll definitely have him on.
We're going to reach out to him. That would
reach
be very
out to him and
have him on your show.
We would love to have him on and have his opponent on another time, or maybe at the same time, and have them. We'll have a good discussion. But that's a good way to get people some exposure. Okay?
Thank you. Thank you so much.
Thank you. My pleasure. Is anyone else going to call in? Meanwhile, we can certainly talk about so many other issues that are taking place. The United States of America is a country where 1/5 of our children go home to bed hungry 1 or more nights of the month. 1/5 of American children go to bed hungry either 1 or more of the nights of the month. And that to me is it's a social sin. It cannot be accepted in this great country or anywhere in the world that has the opportunity to feed everyone in our country. In fact, we are the breadbasket of the world. We feed a lot of other countries' children when there are disasters that strike, famines. And yet we cannot guarantee, I know we can do this. I know we can guarantee our young people organic, healthy food. If you look at the kind of menus that our schools have, they're not the greatest menus either. We need to bring in organic food. Look at the wealthiest district in California, probably the wealthiest, if not one of the wealthiest, Marin County Unified School District in north of San Francisco. Their students are getting $18,000 per pupil spending in their district. $18,000 per pupil. In Southgate, a lower income area of California, in Southern California, near Los Angeles, in LA County, Southgate district is about $7,500 per student. Long Beach, where I live, is about $9,000 per student. So you can see the disparities in the per pupil spending, and that's one reason Marin County has a completely organic menu with the healthiest food, with the most delicious recipes for their children's lunches. And everyone gets that in Marin County. Now in France, the students get the Marin County type and probably even more in terms of health and taste in their food, as much at least as Marin County. But the French students all across France, because the funding is equalized K through 12 over there, they get fully funded, delicious, natural food with chefs cooking it for them at their mealtime. And they have 1 hour lunch breaks, by the way. And during lunch break, they study how food affects your biology, your health and life expectancy and chances. They turn lunchtime into a classroom after enjoying delicious food. We can do that right here in California throughout the state. And I think that's food safety, food security, and food safety are extremely important, because that's what we become quite often, what we eat. If you look at food safety, look at the GMO foods, genetically modified organisms. My book has a chapter on that, how Monsanto, one of the biggest GMO producers, who not only encourages GMOs and uses them and has Terminator seeds that are GMO, but also has Roundup and all kinds of glyphosate and chemicals used in that process of creating GMO foods and fighting against weeds. This is just outrageous. It hurts our children's health, and yet Monsanto was able to defeat the GMO labeling proposition that came up, Prop 37, just a few years ago, because Monsanto and their friends in the agribusiness poured millions of dollars into the campaign with scare tactics to keep the American California voter from voting for Prop 37, which would have required labeling of GMO foods so that people here could have a choice. So as you can see, in so many aspects of our lives, it's the money in politics that has influenced it in such a negative way. And we, the people, can take it back once we're informed about these things and once we know how to do it. So hopefully this program will help with that. And we welcome everyone's viewpoint, everyone to participate. Any more calls coming in? How are we doing on time, Brett? Is it 7:30 yet?
It's 7:30 right now.
Okay. Well, we'll have to say goodnight till tomorrow night, 7 o'clock again, and hopefully there'll be more people prepared to call in. And let all your friends know, please, at 7 o'clock to 7:30 tomorrow night on Peter Mathews 11 YouTube channel. Peter Mathews, Mathews, 1T. 11 for 11. Peter Mathews 11. Okay? Thank you so much. Take care. It's good to talk to everyone. Good night.